The Chida, in one of his books, he wrote many, many books, over 70 books. He wrote books on law, on Musar, on Kabbalah. He was a tremendous tzaddik. So in one of his books, he discusses the concept of Teshuvah, which we're going to discuss a lot today. With Rosh Hashanah coming up, the theme of Rosh Hashanah is Teshuvah. So in that book, he says, now there's a well-known Gemara, that people discuss when you talk about Teshuvah. If you're going to talk about Teshuvah, you have to be aware of what the Gemara says about Teshuvah and the different atonements involved, and whether your Teshuvah is fully accepted, depending on the severity of the sin, whether you have to wait until Yom Kippur for the full atonement to come, and even for grave sins, that even that you have to wait until the day you die till your sins are fully atoned for. And there's a discussion there about suffering, that in order to get really full atonement, you also have to go through suffering. Kapara, the word kapara, which we translate in Hebrew to English as atonement. So the word kapara, the Admor HaZaken, the Baal HaTanya explains, is the language, the root of that language represents the idea of cleansing. And so the suffering that we go through is part of a cleansing, a spiritual cleansing process. Similar to if something is very dirty, you have to scrub it, work to clean it. A very nice example, a deep example of the idea of cleansing the soul, they speak about, for example, gold. If anyone looks at what gold looks like raw out of the earth, it doesn't look so nice. You don't give that to your wife or your fiance. Of course, here in this type of talk, we talk about wives and fiancés. Anyone else, you don't give gold to your daughter, your nice gold little bracelet. It doesn't look so beautiful when you get it out of the ground, this gold. So how does it become so beautiful? They have to put it in a melting pot. That melting pot is in Hebrew a kora barzel, that it's extreme heat, and it purges the gold of the sediments and the tarnished aspects, the negativity, until you have this pure, refined gold. Suffering, from a Jewish perspective, is exactly that example and much more in a spiritual sense. The hardships, the difficulties, the suffering that we go through is an unbelievably deep way that we cleanse our soul from the damage we ourselves cause it with our negative deeds. Fire burns, right? Now, if an avera is spiritual fire, so it burns, it does a lot of damage to your soul, and the only way to cleanse that, to heal that, to fix that, is through the idea of kapara. Now, kapara can come in two ways. The kapara can come in the way of suffering, because there's accountability in this world. There's the reward and punishment. But the Chida says that all that talk in the Gemara there about the different hardships and suffering and the technicalities in getting our soul cleansed and having a real atonement accomplished is only when you do Teshuvah from fear. There's different emotions within us. There's a Teshuvah that's rooted in the attribute and the emotion of fear. But then there's a Teshuvah that's rooted in the emotion and attribute of love. He says when one does Teshuvah from love, that entire Gemara is erased. It doesn't apply. Because in that sense, you've done Teshuvah like a child that himself feels so ashamed. How could I betray my father? How can I sever that connection I have with my father? And a Teshuvah that's rooted in that deep love, and the other language in different books is Ava Rabbah, like this great love, a deep, deep love, not just a basic love, but a very, very intense love. It turns your negative deeds into actual positive deeds, according to Reish Lakish. Very powerful statement. So the Chida, he goes on record and says that if you do Teshuvah from love, so then you bypass all those issues in the Gemara, and you got everything's perfect, beautiful, Baruch Hashem. At the end of this discussion, where the Bnei Yisachar says, and this is what the Chida says about Teshuvah, he says, and I don't know his source. Did not find. We're talking about someone that did a lot of searching. He knew a lot. I did not find the source of the Chida for this statement. But, again, in his opinion, he says, but if that's how the Chida paskin, if that's the ruling, the halachic ruling of the Chida in this world, a great rabbi, one of the greatest in his generation and in many generations, then I'm certain that that's how they also established the law in heaven, and that must be the law. That was his great, that's how he revered and held the Chida in such a high regard that he said, if that's what the Chida said, then that's the emes.